everybody, and today I'm going to be starting a new series of videos on Laneswaps. I'm going to call this series Learning Laneswaps, fairly simply, and I think this is something which is actually very hard to learn. Laneswaps are really complicated. The number of variables in a laneswap is just incredible, and something that I've realized quite recently is that learning lane swaps is really difficult, and there really isn't a resource to do it out there. I coach a team, and right now I'm trying to teach them how to lane swap, and I was going through the basics of them with it the other day, and they are asking me lots of questions, and what's my jungle pathing, where do we start, what's our ward start, and honestly the answer to every single one of the questions was, well, it depends. And lane swaps depend so greatly on matchups, on reactions, on warding, on the type of thing you're trying to do, on your win conditions. It is just crazy the level of complexity that is involved in these things. And so learning them is really, really difficult. Pretty much the only way at the moment is to just watch loads of games, watch loads and loads of lane swap games and figure it out yourself, or to play them yourself, to just do loads of lane swaps. So I want to create a resource so that we can all learn together. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I've watched a lot of games and really, really focused on the lane swap, and I'm trying to teach this to my team as well. So what I'll be doing is some games I'll be doing pro matches, which are a much higher level, and then I'll also be using, with the permission of my team, their videos as well to show you how this goes at kind of a lower level. They're not like a low skill team. They're Challenger over in Latin America South. They're a great team, but we are starting very much from zero. We don't know much about lane swaps at the moment. It's not a region where lane swaps are done much, so you'll be able to see very clearly how this goes in normal non-pro situations where the other team doesn't actually know what they're doing and what happens in all kinds of different situations. And we'll all be able to, in theory, learn together along the way. So that's the aim for this series of videos. And this game is Fnatic versus H2K, which is the third place playoff for the EUL CS Spring Playoffs. And it's a video which I've done a series look on if you want to go and check that out. I talk more extensively and in more depth about the whole series, but this game I wanted to talk about specifically because it's a really good starting place to learn things about our lane swaps. This lane swap has a lot of good bits to it and a lot of nice variants and a lot of nice adaptations on behalf of both teams, specifically Fnatic. So I think this is a really good place for us to start. So I'm going to play this video through, but before that, I'm just going to talk quickly about team comps. Like I said, I've discussed this in much greater depth in the other video, but to give you a basic flavor of it, Ezreal Trundle is going to get absolutely bummed by Kalista and Thresh, so you really, really, really want to dodge that matchup, and that's why we're lane swapping in this game. Also, it opens up the lanes and allows that Ezreal to get to late game quicker because it gives you more global gold on the side of both teams. And Ezreal, when he gets to late game, is great. So is Azir when he gets to late game. All in all, Fnatic is a team that really likes to play for the late game, really excels in late game team fighting, whereas H2K is a very lane dominant team. So if you come up against that type of matchup in terms of the lane matchups or in terms of the stylistic matchup in your teams, then lane swapping might be the right answer. So let's roll the clip and we'll talk about the jungle starts in the first place and the wardings. So Fnatic goes for a bit of harassment to Ryu first. Have I sped this up? I believe I have. Yes, this is on 1.25 speed, so we'll get through this a bit quicker and I'll pause as and when it's needed. These are your standard 3 lane swap wards, the ones that Fnatic is putting down right now, and that's so that whatever route people take through the jungle, you will be able to see them. So that's between the 2 bottom towers, in the jungle at the Wraith Bush, and then one in the mid lane. So whatever route people take to the bot lane, you'll be able to see who goes there. And what Fnatic does is to make sure they get the lane swap, is their bot lane just hides around mid lane, and then when they see Vanda and Forgiven, they run for it. Because last game, they went for a 50-50, where no one does any invades, and you just guess, and they got it wrong, and they got hurt pretty bad in the early game. They ended up winning the game, but yeah, so they see Vanda across that ward there, and they immediately run up to top lane. That's fine. It does mean that they will miss out on a camp, but so will the H2K bot lane, because they were going there early as well. Generally speaking, when you start out, you want to go for a camp. So the next thing we'll talk about is the jungle starts and the jungle invades. Both teams are going for what's called a greedy start. So you start on your weak side of the jungle, i.e. the side where your AD carry and your support are not, and go around there towards your strong side of the jungle, and then you go for the tower. This is why we see a lot of supports invading. You'll see that Cly ran into the blue side jungle to check where they were starting, and this is something you want to do if you don't know where the junglers are starting. You want to go and check that so that you know which camps are available. If they do a greedy start and you mess them up and push them off, or they don't take the buff on that side, then you know you have a 3 buff, as is what's happening here. So Spirit and Gamsu got the buff on their side, they then go to their red buff, and then they go to the enemy blue buff and they get 3 buffs. So already Spirit's off to a great start just because they went for an invade, and H2K didn't. They chose to push the lane a bit faster and gain a bit more what's called tempo. So you see the tower goes down, and now we're going to start talking about tempo. Before we talk about that, one important thing to notice is the wards that are halfway up the lane of the towers that are going down now. And the reason you place those wards just behind the Gromp wall is so that you can see when the AD carry and the support are going to go there. You know what? This is going a bit too quickly. Let's take the speed down. Let's chill out a little bit. I'm talking very quickly at the moment, and I'm going to pause it for a second. So, what's happened is H2K has got a minor lead on the tower, which means that their bot lane goes to go back first. After the first tower goes down, the top laner wants to stay there and soak experience and gold from as many minions as possible. So generally speaking, if you get a tower down first, as is the case in H2K, with H2K in this game, then your top laner will get more CS because you bounce the wave, so you kill all the minions in the wave with the tower, you let all of your minions die so that you deny those minions from the enemy team, and then you take the next wave if you have time. If the enemy team has taken your tower first and their bot lane has recalled to come and get you, you will not have time. So what you'll see is Odo jumping out to a CS lead over Gamsu, and that's because the bot lane from H2K has arrived first, and that's why you put those wards down, so that you can see when they're coming. Now Odo gets the whole wave and gets to go back. Gamsu does not get the whole wave, so he is 7 CS down. Well, that's a bit off, but anyway. So H2K have a tempo advantage. Tempo is basically the speed at which you can take down towers, who's taking the towers first, who's pushing out the waves harder. And that gives you lots of advantages, which we'll come on to talk about. It's a term that gets bandied around a lot, but as you can see, H2K's bot lane is way further up in the lane than Fnatic's, and that's because the tower went down first. And this tempo advantage leads to one of the biggest plays, it's also called momentum or lots of other things, that is kind of standard in Europe at the moment, which is the Rift Herald. We love the Rift Herald. As you can see, Cly goes into the jungle, and that gives even more tempo advantage to H2K. They can take this tower down much quicker because Vander stays there to DPS. They're onto the tower much quicker. And what happens at this point is you bounce the wave as normal, you kill as many of the minions as you can, and as it gets down, you leave your top laner all of the gold, which is very, very common unless you're really trying to snowball your bot lane matchup and you're looking for those standard lanes. And when it gets low enough, your support and your jungler will go and take the Rift Herald. And then that allows you to rotate around to the other lane and build up a big wave because the enemy team will have bounced the wave that they're currently on, so you'll get a push in that wave. And the lanes are very long at this point, so you get a really, really big Rift Herald wave. And the problem with that is that if you're going to carry on lane swapping and people are going to carry on dodging you, then they will lose. They have to either break the tempo somehow, which we'll get onto in a second, or they have to just match you. Well, so you can, in a lane swap, you can match someone, which means to take the standard lanes, to take the 2v2 and the 1v1 against the Rift Herald. You'll get some chip damage on your tower, you generally lose out and you'll get pushed in. So they'll have an advantage in terms of their jungle and warding control. Or you can mirror it, but if they have a Rift Herald buff, you will lose that mirror. Generally speaking, in lane swaps, I would say you should give the Rift Herald buff to the AD carry for reasons we will see in a second. So at this point, Fnatic knows they have a tempo disadvantage. They know that H2K has the Rift Herald and they will be pushing in and they cannot mirror this. So you can match it. You can go standard lanes with Trundle and Ezreal, which is going to be rough, or you can do something to try and break the tempo and reset and make it yours. And that's what this is right now. They know that there aren't going to be that many wards on this side of the map because it's been a very low influenced area of the map because it's been, 4v1s, 3v1s in towers. And so you gank the mid laner. Ryu here is overextended. He shouldn't be playing here without vision, but they take advantage of that and they get a kill. And this allows them to reset the tempo of the game. Also, the reason why I added that I would normally give Rift Herald to the AD carry is exactly this. Forgiven right now is pushing that big old wave and it's massive, and if it had Rift Herald it would go so much quicker. But because Jankos gets pulled to the mid lane to respond to this gank, there's no Herald buff taking down this tower. Actually, I think Forgiven would have got a really big chunk on it with the Herald buff. Obviously it wouldn't have been as good, but yeah, anyway, so so yeah, this is the replay of that. That put me off. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I was ready to launch into my next little segment. But yeah, so despite this, H2K still has a tempo advantage because while this has been happening, they've built that big wave up into the bot lane, and that means that they can pull back and they can take the dragon because they know that Ezreal, at the very least, is going to have to go to answer that wave. But looking in the top lane, the opposite is happening. So you've got one freeze and one push, and this is generally the state that you want to be in lane swaps because that's the way you're getting the most farm out of it. So Gamsu pushes this wave all the way in to the top tower, and then again that gives him time to go and do other stuff. So with this tempo advantage that Fnatic have now seized because they can get these pushing waves, because they managed to get that mid lane gank, and because Gamsu's been pushing in the top lane, they now have the freedom to dodge this really horrible 2v2 matchup for pretty much most of the game. And that means that your Ezreal gets to farm up, and whereas normally your tower would go down, as it does in another game, very, very early because of the double range matchup, and you would get really bad CS because CSing under tower is really hard when it's pushed into you. You are able to get CS, and you see Ezreal and Trundle push out the bottom lane, and then they recall. As soon as you push out that lane, you just recall because you know that they're going to come and answer it, and it's going to take them a while because the lanes are so long at this point because all the towers are down. So you have until the lane gets to your tower to do something else, and this is what you see on the map right now with Trundle and Ezreal. They go to the mid lane to just get some chip damage or get a gank or do something. The top lane, because it was pushed all the way into Odo's tower, is now going to bounce back to Gamsu, and Forgiven's going to be pushing in. So this is a dangerous position. You've got two freezes, or two lanes pushing into you on either side, and this is something that, generally speaking, you want to avoid. I've been over this in a video before. It was another Fnatic game, Fnatic Elements, in my VOD review section, if you want to take a look at that, where I talk in quite a lot of length about wave manipulation and why you want to have waves pushing in certain areas. But that's another story. So this wave's going to push all the way in, the bot lane has to respond and come and farm it, and again, H2K has some time to maneuver around the map, and this is how the lane swap scenario goes. It's kind of an ebb and flow. You have to play with the waves, you have to know where the waves are going to be, and you have to respond to that appropriately. So you have to understand the timings of the wave going all the way from your side to their side, back to your side, to their side, and you have to play with that ebb and flow, and the jungler has to play around that as well. Generally speaking, in lane swaps, the jungler will be playing to the AD carry and the support side because that's the strong side, because the support in all of this time will, generally speaking, not be staying in the lane with the AD carry to push the waves because they're not needed. They will be roaming to get vision and maybe pull off ganks. So what is happening next? I think there is a lull for a short period of time, so we'll speed this up a little bit. Speed to 1.5 for now. Zoom, zoom, zoom. So we fast forwarded a bit, and I'll take it off the super speed because there was a fairly big lull. So right now, if you look on the map, the bottom lane is getting a big wave pushed into it by H2K, and Gamsu is just trying to undo the big freeze and start to push that wave in. So at this point, H2K has a tempo advantage. They have the waves pushing into Fnatic, and Fnatic will have to respond to that. It will have to send Ezreal bot. You're seeing Reckless run to the bot lane now. So that means that H2K can make a play, and the usual play is to make a play either for jungle vision control or for the mid lane. Now, champions like Azir, Ezreal, Gangplank with really high wave clear and really good staying power are really, really helpful for this. As you can see, H2K is contesting stuff in the jungle because they know that Ezreal has to be at that tower and he's weaker versus the Kalista. So this means that H2K has control of this side of the map. But they have to leave this top push or this mid push and this jungle control because Gamsu is pushing in the lane. So that means Odoamne has to be there. He can't teleport away, at least until he's cleared out this wave. Wave goes all the way into the tower. And so what happens? Odoamne has to stay to push out that wave, and that means that Gamsu and Spirit can take the Rift Herald. So again, it's playing with this, push the waves in, then go for something else. When you have waves pushed into the enemy tower, that's when you move. You move into that side of the jungle, and you move back to take other stuff, or you rotate across to mid lane. So it's always about this two-step process where you are pushing waves in, then making a play. Pushing waves, then making a play. And that you have to push the waves and respond to the waves that they're pushing into. So again, it's this very ebb and flow, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And you have to take teleports into consideration with that, and that's a big part of it. But that's a story for another day. So that's pretty much all we have to talk about now. So to summarize, if you're going to lane swap, do it at the right time. So that means do it when you have a disadvantageous matchup. You need to hide something, you need to scale for late game, or you need to open out the lane. Say you have like a Twisted Fate in the mid lane that excels when the side lanes are open for being ganked, or you have like a champion that really benefits from being in long lanes like Echo or Quinn because they have that crazy chase and sticking potential. Right. Ward behind the towers, and the top lane needs to soak those waves as much as possible. Very much lane swaps is a case of like keeping your top laner relevant and sharing that as much of the XP as possible. And you see a lot of top laners just hiding in places to try and soak up minion waves when they're crashing into towers. As a top laner in lane swap meta, it really is just about stealing as much XP as you possibly can. Use your waves and your pushing power, if you have it, to get a tempo advantage. And when you get a tempo advantage, play for the Rift Herald, play for dragons, play for vision, and play for more tempo advantages. Use your tempo advantage to push more towers. If they are going to mirror you, then use that to just win in the mirror match, or use it to go elsewhere and rotate into mid lane, make ganks, push mid towers, etc, etc. Dodge bad matchups by pushing out your lanes and then either recalling and swapping out or going somewhere else, again to the mid lane again. And use, if you are behind in tempo, use things like teleports or the small windows of opportunity you have within that to and fro to pull off ganks, either with your teleports on the side lanes or just with your jungler in the mid lanes. And the jungler has to play towards the strong side. You always time where the jungler is, judging by where the lanes are, where the A, the minion waves, and B, where specifically the support and the AD carry. The AD carry is going to be the one pushing out the waves, and the support's going to be mostly the one making the roams and playing for vision and playing for ganks. Whew, that's pretty much everything for our first lesson. I don't think I've missed anything out. This lane swap in particular really was quite rich in terms of the back and forth, and it's a really good example for us to get going. Next one, I'm going to be doing a Team Liquid Immortals one on how to counter that Rift Herald push. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm looking forward to doing the rest of them. And if you have any feedback, please do leave it. I'd love to hear from you. That'll be all from me. Take care of yourselves. Bye.